Well, welcome back to Gopher's Workshop. I'm your host, Aaron, and joining me, as always, is the very not short Chris.
What? What are you trying to say?
We're talking about our short kings today, right?
Oh, all right.
Like me.
I'm glad you spelled that connection because no one got it, including me.
Whatever. All right. I understood. That's all that matters. Oh gosh. Right. So we have to talk about some things, right? Before we get started on this.
Yeah. Housekeeping. Need fluffy pillow.
All right. So we were originally not going to record an episode for this week, for Nova Week, because we're not going to be here. But
we're not here. You don't see or hear us.
You don't see or hear us. We don't exist. But we decided that instead of trying to catch back up and, record the Votan Codex review the week after and then trying to do like 2 weeks after a Nova review, we figured, well, why not? We'll just go ahead and do the Votan Codex review this week so we can ensure that you get a good, authentic Nova review the week after.
Now, in trying to cram it in here, we also have to apologize because we're not doing this in the studio, or our normal place, I should say. I say studio like it's fancy.
It is fancy. We have foam on all the walls.
But so I probably sound a little messy. It's fine. It's just for this week. We'll go back to the good stuff.
We're gonna get that good. Nothing. Silence. I understand.
Just don't acknowledge that. It's fine.
All right. Well, that all being said, Chris, what are we going to talk about today?
The old Votan. Okay, so I don't know what the best mining joke is for space dwarves, but here's my opinion on the whole codex. The datasheet is either plated in gold or clad in lead. There's 2 or 3 data sheets that's not true, but wow, is it just feast or famine? I think the Votan are great. I think they're borderline amazing. They do some stuff that is nutty, but also the number of data sheets, and I hate to say this, even some of the new units that just came out that are so hard duds. It's kind of funny to read the data sheet and be like, I would never play that. At its points, I would really never play that. There is no way. Anyway, we'll start with the old detachments. I lied. We have to start with the army rule because that changed. So for those that know, there was the judgment tokens before. So it used to be beginning of a game and also occasionally through the game, you'd hand out little tokens and the tokens would give them +1 to hit. If they had multiple tokens, it was +1 to hit and wound. First off, there was a constant argument, as far as I'm concerned, about whether or not this was balanced. Not because the rule was bad or too good or whatever, but it was about how many tokens can you pump out and it still feel appropriate. So indexes, there was a number, and then they updated that number on index, or at least the beginning of game number. And it never really, I don't know, it felt better, but it still it went from definitely not enough to kind of too much. And anyway, new rule is arguably more complicated, but also it's kind of simplified in when you deal with it. For the most part, I'll get into that. As you're playing, you get what they call yield points. These yield points you earn through a couple of things: holding 1 or more objectives not within your deployment zone, an additional one for holding 2 or more objective markers not in your deployment zone, and then if you control your opponent's objective marker. In addition to these 3, there are plenty of other ways to get them, whether it's via your characters or your detachment, because one of the detachments is every time you kill a unit, you get one. So these will actually stack up surprisingly quickly. But these yield points have two main functions. The first one is across various data sheets and stratagems. You can spend these points to buff your ability. So like the stratagem might say reroll ones to hit, but if you spend, let's say, 2 yield points, instead of reroll ones to hit, it's like full rerolls, something like that.
Okay, I don't hate this.
Yeah,
I like
it's kind of like command points, but it's a separate pool. So it feels a little cumbersome. Like I said, it's a little more complicated because we're having to like manage multiple resources and track them and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But basically, you score these at the end of each player's command phase. So it's both players, which is why I say they can stack up pretty quickly. Because if I'm holding an objective in my turn, and then I just stay put because we're in the middle of a fight, well, as long as I still out OC you after the fight, I'll get another point on your turn. Like, it can stack up pretty quickly. But the other thing it does is the level of points you have. And this is where it gets kind of interesting. The level of points you have determines what your army ability is. So if you have 0 to 6, so less than 7 points, your whole army gets +1 to hit if targeting the enemy that is on an objective marker. And you also get reroll, advance, and charge rolls. So you're going to start the game with reroll, advance, and charge. This isn't advance and charge. It's just reroll the die when you do those things. And then +1 to hit if you're targeting someone on an objective. This is pretty solid, right? No complaints. I don't have to do any work. I just get this. Good stuff. If you have 7 or more, then it switches abilities to still being +1 to hit when targeting an enemy on an objective marker. But instead of reroll, advance, and charge rolls, you now get, with the excluding vehicles, if the enemy targets you and the strength is higher than your toughness, -1 to wound. So this becomes, I think, really powerful and also really interesting because you're like, I want to ramp up points, but I don't want to ramp too fast because like turn 1, maybe even turn 2, I want that like reroll charge, right? Turn 1, I want the reroll advance. I'll get it. No questions asked. But I kind of want the reroll charges on turn 2, maybe, right? I bring down my deep strikes. I get to reroll one charge. But then I want to ramp up points so that by my opponent's turn 2, I'm getting the -1 to wound. And you can start creating this like little dance of points where it's like during my opponent's turn, I'm going to try to have -1 to wound. But during my turn, -1 to wound doesn't apply. So I'm going to try to get the reroll, advance, and charge rolls by spending my points. It's complicated. I think it's good. But the fact that we get the army rule is arguably +1 to hit if targeting an enemy on an objective. So it's still useful all the time, kind of regardless of your build.
I like this so much.
Yeah, again,
it's so good.
It's complicated, and like everyone who's going to be testing out this new codex, I'm telling you right now, it's going to take games, not a game, games to like figure some of this stuff out and get it right, because it's more complicated than it used to be. But it's like when you interact with these points is kind of solidified a little better. You're not dealing with, you know, little markers on the table of like, was this attached to that unit or this unit? I can't remember. And is that 1 or 2 tokens there? I don't know. I think it's better than the old one, but also it's more complicated. So going to the attachments, we'll start with the first one. Actually, here's a question. Should I just go in order or should I put them in rank order?
Ooh, rank order.
All right. Well, to confuse everyone who's following along, the first detachment is also, I think, the worst one. Anyway, so the first one is, as I mentioned, each time you destroy an enemy unit, you gain a yield point. That's the detachment rule. That's all it does. This is not to say it's bad, because it's for sure going to be the fastest way to get to the 7 or more. So you could get -1 to wound basically on turn 1 if you really want. Overall, the detachment is very meh. I will admit, I think this detachment is going to see play, but I think the play is going to be restricted to like the European meta. So Votan already like the MSU, but this detachment, its abilities, its stratagems, it feels very kind of MSU leaning and very, let's say, like infantry killing. It doesn't have a lot of support for like dealing with vehicles or whatever else, but it does have some like bonus AP and things like that. So it could deal with some tough elite units if it wanted to. It's really funny. A good example, I guess, is there's a stratagem in here called Void Hardened Armor. Most of us will know this as Armor of Contempt. But the reason it's bad is because it turns out you only get to use Armor of Contempt, Void Hardened Armor, when you're in the 7+ yield point portion of your army roll. They call that, I should have said this earlier, they call that Fortified Takeover. So, like, Armor of Contempt is solid. No one's complaining. The fact that it's like, you get Armor of Contempt, hooray! But you only get it like turn 2 on, unless you try hard to make it turn 1. And also you're like acknowledging you don't get to spend points and reroll advance and charge rolls. Because if you spend points, well, now you lose Armor of Contempt. Oh.
Okay, I already hate this detachment so much.
It's, again, I think there's like, if you're doing like an MSU into an MSU, the European style, I think it's not that bad. But it's just, especially like over here, I think it's not playable. I think it's kind of too bad. So going to the next worst, and this is where some people are probably going to be mad at me, but that's fine, is the Berserker detachment, or I should say Chthonian detachment. So Chthonian Berserkers are playable. I'm not saying they aren't. They are okay, but I don't think they're as good as several other units, to include I used to call them Terminators, but they're not. The Hearthguard. Anyway, this detachment says Berserkers gain the battle line keyword, so you can take up to 6 instead of 3. And then it also gives Berserkers Deep Strike, which, if we combine that with our primary army rule of reroll charges, and we keep spending points to keep that down in order to get reroll charges, this could be okay. It is definitely better than the first detachment, but I still don't think it's good. It basically, between the stratagems and whatnot, it mostly benefits Chthonian Berserkers and the new Chthonian Artillery. We'll get to the data sheets later, but they're trying to make bad data sheets better. I don't think this detachment does enough, and the stratagems aren't even all that impressive. If you're interested, read it yourself, but I'm gonna pass on this because it's not even exciting enough to be like, no, look, this is why it's bad. It's just like, no, it's so lackluster that it's just, I don't even know what to say about it.
I'm not gonna make take too much time on it to comment, but I wouldn't take it. That's all I'm gonna say. I wouldn't take it.
So,
I don't even know what the other options are, and I already wouldn't take this one.
Yeah. The next one, this is like the middle of the road. So we have 5 detachments we're going to go over. This is number 3. I actually like this one. It wouldn't be the one that I play, which is why it's at number 3. But this one is the Hearthfire Arsenal. So the Hearthfire detachment says at the end of your command phase, you gain a yield point for each objective marker you control, not within your deployment zone, that has an Iron Master or a strategist on it. This is in addition to the army rule, so it stacks. So if I have one of those guys on the objective marker, I would gain 2, one for the army rule and then one for the detachment rule. But the detachment rule says there's a maximum of 2 that you could gain per turn. Again, per turn is both my turn and their turn, but it's still, in theory, I'm getting max 5 a turn off army rule and detachment. There are other ways, so I could actually gain more than that. So this gives you a good idea of how easy it is to get to that 7 if you really want it. In addition,
spicy.
Yeah, the detachment, in addition, in the shooting phase, each time a Brocare, Ironkin, Steeljack, or Evaluator unit from your army shoots, you can spend a yield point. If you do, until the end of the phase, each time they go to shoot, you can re-roll hit rolls of 1. Not bad, especially with how fast you're gaining them. I don't mind that you're probably spending like 3 a turn.
Yeah.
Again, this whole detachment is really trying to push the new Steeljacks. It's trying to push the Evaluator for whatever reason. It is good. I don't mind this detachment. I don't think it's as good as others, but it's a pretty reasonable take. We're going to move on. So going backwards a little bit, we've got the Brand Fist Oathbound. I actually love this detachment. We're going to have the list that I made put up on Patreon, and I really struggled to not make this detachment because I think this detachment's hilariously good. I'm going to rank this as number 2. So this is a transport detachment. And I know what you're thinking. It can't be that cool. We've seen a bunch of them over the last few codexes. I'm telling you, this one's hilarious. So the rule is all Votan transports gain this ability. Fire-based control aura, while friendly Leagues of Votan infantry are wholly within 6 of the transport, ranged weapons equipped by infantry have sustained 1. Here's why this is hilariously good. First off, unlike all the other transport detachments, we're not obligated to have disembarked this turn, which means the detachment works every turn, not just the turn I disembark and then I have to re-embark later in order to get the benefit again, which is how most, like, this is so much better. Also, the fact that it's an aura means that I can have 1 hecaton land fortress, right? Just, I could have 1 vehicle supporting like 3+ different units instead of most of the other transport attachments where it's like, because I had to disembark, it's how many could fit inside there. I can only support that many units, which often means I can only support 1 unit per transport. This is infinitely better than the other transport detachments we've seen. I love this thing. So in addition to that, we have enhancements, we have stratagems. Long story short, it's hilariously good. Not all of it makes sense, I guess, because like there's two enhancements that are restricted to calls. There's one enhancement that's restricted to Iron Masters. I don't know that you're going to take multiple calls. Maybe do, maybe don't. That's like a build specific thing. But the stratagems are solid. Detachment rule is good. I love this thing. Also, for those of you that don't know, Votan are very transport heavy. Their main battle tank, the Land Fortress, is a transport. Their main transport, the Sagittar, is a transport. And then we just gained a new buggy that could be built either as little gunboat or little transport. We have lots of options.
I'm loving this.
Yeah. So then we're going to go to the number one detachment.
But DACA was before we go to number one, I just want to say, but DACA was the problem.
You know what? You're right. Let me backtrack here. For this detachment with the transport, I'm going to read you from my book of not grudges. There's an enhancement, and this one isn't restricted. It can go on any Votan model. Well, character model. In your shooting phase, each time the bearer is selected to shoot, if it disembarked from a transport or spent 2 yield points. We'll come back to that. Until the end of the phase, ranged weapons equipped by models in that unit have sustain 2. First off, don't paint them green. They won't get banned. It's fine. Secondly, this enhancement is nuts. Here's why. This doesn't actually care about the aura. You can, when it goes to shoot, it can be off on its own. You can spend 2 yield points and get sustain 2. We don't even care that all my transports are dead. I'll still get sustain 2, better than my detachment roll. This is so good.
DACA was the problem, though. Just want everybody to know.
I can't wait for sustain 2 to be like shown as so good that it's like, nope, they have to ban that unit. And then when they nerf that unit, they'll just move the enhancement to someone else. And then we'll have to ban that unit and we'll go through the whole codex till it's banned. Anyway, no, it's really not. It's not as bad as DACA. Also, as we keep joking, DACA shouldn't have been banned in the first place.
It really shouldn't have.
Right. It is reasonable. It is powerful, but it is reasonable. And I'm super happy about it. Again, this is not crazy powerful. This is like good powerful. All right. So last detachment, best detachment. I don't want to say most people, an amount of people are going to disagree with me. And if you believe that the transport detachment is better than this one, I'm not even going to argue. I totally understand. There's a real amount of, we'll say, bias that I have to this. So the detachment rule is all units from your army gain this rule, guerrilla adepts. In your shooting phase, just after this unit is selected to shoot, the unit can use this ability. If it does, select one enemy unit, excluding monsters and vehicles. Until the end of the phase, attacks made by models in your unit can only attack that enemy unit, so we can't split fire. And after resolving those attacks, if one or more of those attacks hit an enemy, until the end of the next shooting phase, or your next shooting phase, excuse me. So basically until your next turn, those units are considered assailed, which it clarifies here is just a label. It doesn't actually mean anything. They're just assailed. If the unit is already assailed and you would assail them again, until the start of your next shooting phase, it is also pinned. Pinned units subtract 2 from their move characteristic and from their charge rolls. Now this is already like solid board control, and I love it. This is actually hilariously good. Votan, excluding their transports and their bikes, are a little slower than average, and that's okay. But this is super good for them. They have a ton of MSU units. They really like that. They have a ton of long to mid-range shooting, which means you can have like, yeah, I'm within 24, but if I give you -2 to your move and -2 to your charge, you're probably not going to charge me next turn. Super good. There are obviously enhancements and stratagems in here that allow you to alter what this does. Like if the unit's assailed, the unit with this enhancement gets +1 to wound against that unit, so you can make assailed feel more relevant. In addition, you have an enhancement that allows you to pin monsters and vehicles. So yes, there are restrictions to the detachment, but also there's probably an exception to that restriction. And then there's a bunch of buffs for things that are assailed. I think this detachment's amazing. This Codex and army rule, etc., are already complicated enough. It's going to take kind of a long time to get the army down. And this detachment is also probably the most complicated one, in that when is it relevant to try to pin something? When is it relevant to try to assail it? Or do I just split fire because that's more efficient? This is going to be complicated and it's going to be difficult to play. But I'm telling you, from a competitive standpoint, all of this, like all the tools are here. Everything you want is available. This detachment's awesome. And on that note, the list that I put together and we're putting on our Patreon for you guys to look at my wild and stupid ideas will be this detachment. It's not super obvious as far as like, again, this detachment is good based upon the player and targeting the right things to assail, targeting the right things to pin. But Votan love MSU, and we'll go more into that when we go into data sheets. There's a ton of units. The list I built, I think, has 20 different units after like splitting and transports and all that. That's crazy. 20. In addition, 20's a mountain.
What the?
In addition,
I'm okay with this, but holy cow.
What? So, and this is why I think it's so funny, is because I have 20 units, but I'm not doing like, no, but I took all the cheap units and stuff like that. No, I took 2 hecatons. I took 2 full bricks of like the Thunderkin.
Mm-hmm.
That's a lot of points. 240 points for a single vehicle, 160 points for 6 models. That's not cheap per se. And I'm still ending up at 20 units.
Yeah.
Nuts.
This is crazy. Votan just, I'm just going to say it. Votan just got a huge buff. And I look forward to seeing them up higher on the meta watch.
Yes. And I basically already said it before, but Votan got a giant buff here. I agree with you. I think there's going to be this big lag of like, the Codex has come out, they got a giant buff, they're not doing very well. Mm-hmm. And then out of nowhere, like no changes, out of nowhere, they're going to start doing way better, way fast. And that's because it's so complicated between the army rule and like the detachment rules and stuff like that. It is not an easy thing to play. I don't know that it's quite as complicated as Gene Stealer cults, because they're known for being stupid complicated. But these guys might be like number 2 most complicated.
I can't disagree. These guys are going to be extremely complicated to run. You're 100% right. We're going to see this lag where they're not going to be doing so great and everybody's going to be concerned. And then just out of nowhere, we're going to see this giant spike in these Votan players.
Mm-hmm.
The only thing I'm worried about is, and I'm not saying this will happen. I am saying it's a concern, is that GW is gonna see that the Votan aren't doing good. They just got their new Codex. It must be just something to do with the points or the abilities. So they're gonna give them another buff, which is gonna cause our players even more delay in getting to where they need to be for learning their armies. Because it's just another thing I have to relearn now.
Dude, if we're talking about point changes specifically, I think you're right in that if they're doing bad enough and GW tries to fix it too early, and that will be mostly dependent upon how much does like the player base kind of complain, for lack of a better term. So if they're just like, if they kind of more quietly just try to figure it out and whatever, I don't think GW will get too up in arms and try to fix stuff.
Yep.
If they just quietly work on it, it'll be fine. If people are like, no, look how bad we're doing, and they start complaining and they change points lower, I think that will make Votan become like number 1 or number 2 faster.
Yeah.
But once they get to that point, there's not very many point changes I think they need. There are some, but there aren't very many they need. So I think if they lower the points, they'll rocket up to the top. Now that people are doing well with them, they're going to see like, wait, but how much damage does that unit do? How much does that unit cost? That's too low. And then they're going to get nerfed again after that. So if people complain, you're going to end up on this roller coaster. But I don't know that it's, I would like to not be on the roller coaster, but if we do end up there, while it will take longer to get to the appropriate balance, I don't think that actually hurts like the learning of the faction, because point changes don't change how complicated the army roll is.
Yeah.
It just changes how much you have to do it right.
Yeah. I want to caveat all of this with saying GW is doing the best they can in a lot of these circumstances, trying to adjust things for the player base and adjust things for like keeping the game, you know, as even as possible. They're doing the best they can, but also this falls on us as players too, to be cognizant of what you're saying, because
Correct.
They are taking everything you're saying to heart at all times. So be cognizant and think about what you're going to say before you say it. We all learned that in kindergarten.
Well, some of us were a little later. We're not talking about docket attachment. It's fine. But anyway. No, but you're right. I've been a part of some of the TO meetings. I've talked with the guys, especially on the competitive side, that are worried about tournament circuits and stuff like that. They do care a lot about your feedback. Yeah. And this is where it's on both of us. Yes, it's on them to try to find the balance to the game and adjust points correctly, but it's also on us to not overpressure them or convince them of something that's not true.
Yep.
There are plenty of units where, yeah, if they made them cheaper, I'd be happy. Should they make them cheaper? No. But like, if we all do enough bitching, they might. Like, is that good for the game? Is that good for, even if I'm happy that my unit got cheaper, they shouldn't have? Does that make my friends want to play with me more? Or do they start telling me like, no, but we know that's broken. Stop that.
Yeah.
Like, we have to be adult enough to be reasonable in addition to trust GW. Like, we give them information, but as much as we complain about, hey, this is broken, or hey, this is terrible, we need to give them the information, but then step back and say, now you have the information. We trust you to make the right choice.
Yeah. Well, and I caveat all this with saying we've seen it multiple times, but I can give you 4 particular circumstances and the recent history of this game where GW has shown that they are listening to you and they are seeing you, and you need to be careful.
And not all of it's good, to be fair.
No.
Like docket attachment, they listened. Yep. They said, no, you want it banned? They nerfed it into the ground. It's garbage. Like, it doesn't, they didn't want to do that, but like, they felt obligated because that's what they were told we wanted.
Yep. Well, even before that, when the Blood Angels got their Codex, people were complaining that units were too cheap. Mephiston's too cheap. The Sanguinary Guard is too cheap. All these things are too cheap. But what do? Like literally within 3 weeks of the Codex being dropped, immediately increased the points on all the units people were complaining about. And then 3 months later, found out, oh no, these are too expensive now. And now Blood Angels are doing not so great. So they had to revert the points back to original Codex standard. And then dropped a few more units. The list goes on.
But see, that's the funny part, right? Is they didn't just lower the points of like, no, we increased it too much. They literally reverted most of the points to the original Codex points. They were right in the first place, and they trusted us when we were telling them they were too cheap, and we were wrong. Yep.
And we're seeing it again now with the Knights and the Death Guard. They got like hard nerfed for a couple of or was it an event and GT? Like they got hard nerfed, and then points immediately got adjusted for them. And it's all right, some of those units you needed to be adjusted, but I don't know if all of them needed to.
And we'll wait a little bit before we get on our high horse, right? Like, maybe the Knight adjustments are appropriate. I feel like all the adjustments were in the right direction.
Yes.
Maybe they were too much, but they were in the right direction. So I don't want to say that they're like wrong.
Yeah.
We can wait and find out. Maybe it was too much. Maybe they were right and I'm underestimating them. We'll see. But Death Guard are a great example. When the Death Guard came out, everyone said they were the best, right? Well, literally, even within the conversations of like our own Discord, we had multiple Death Guard players that like 1 week they said, man, this unit's crazy undercosted. The blade drones have to go up by a ton. And then literally they play another game. And then next week they're like, nah, maybe they're appropriately costed. They didn't do anything that game. And then the week after they're back to like, nope, changed my mind. They're still too expensive. I had a really good game. Like, calm down, man. This is a thing that I understand it's new, and I understand we're excited, and we want to be the guy, right? We want to be like, nope, I called it. This had to change. I saw it first.
Yep.
But that's not what's best for the game. We need to like put out, here's what I'm seeing. I don't know if I'm right. Maybe it was my game. Maybe it was my matchup. Here's what I saw. And then after you say to GW, here's what I saw, they can take that and say, well, given all the other information we got, I think this, this group of people is just like, that's a matchup specific thing. We don't need to worry about that. It's fine. Or man, the majority of people are saying they saw the same thing. Maybe they are right. We'll make that adjustment.
Yeah. Well, at any rate, GW, keep doing what you're doing. You're doing us proud.
Yes. And this was not supposed to be a PSA to GW.
No.
This was a PSA to arguably Reddit.
You're right. But I'm gonna pat GW's back in the process and tell Reddit, knock it off. Anyway, are we ready for a mid break? Because we got some spicy things to talk about.
We sure are.
All right, let's go to our mid break. Well, here we are in the middle of the show. This is the part we do a thing. What is it that we do here? What's the thing, Chris? What's the thing?
The Patreon.
Patreon. You didn't say it right. It's supposed to say, it's the patrons.
It's the people, the patrons. Yes.
the peeps. All right, so we have to thank our guardsman patron, Sergeant Matt. Sarge. We have to thank our White Shield guardsman patrons, Mitch and Nicodemus. So thank you, because without you, it'd be a really hard show to do.
It's true. And now is probably a good time because we haven't really gone over Patreon in a while. There are a bunch of benefits on there. If you want to go take a look at them, I encourage it. You don't have to spend a ton of money. There's a tier for a whole $1. It gets you like the access to some of the stuff we do, like the lists that I put out and stuff like that for these Codex reviews. You don't need to spend a ton of money. We appreciate any and all support that you can offer. If literally all of our listeners donated $1, we would get to do like double the number of episodes. We could go over all kinds of crazy stuff. We super appreciate whatever it is you guys do.
Yeah.
If you are looking for some real benefits, some of the higher tiers, like some of the ones that our patrons are already using, you can send in lists and I can review them for you and give you some solid feedback. I can even play test some of your lists in order to kind of give you even better feedback or try to tell you about, play styles and things like that. So we're here to help you and educate you and make you a better player in whatever form it is you are trying to get to. But again, even if it's only $1, that still helps us put out more episodes, which are both entertaining for you, but also hopefully educational. And just $1 is enough to make us goofy nerds happy. So we appreciate all that you guys do.
Well, on that note, thank you to our listeners as well, because you make this whole thing possible. Because then we don't have to talk to ourselves.
Aaron gets to talk to all of you. I have to talk to Aaron. I'm getting the short end of the stick.
Boom. But on that note, what's the new things? What's the new stuff?
There's a bunch of new stuff coming. So for starters, there's new Kill Team box, Death Watch versus Necrons. This has been kind of one that people have been looking forward to for a while. I got spoiled quite a while back. Short answer is the Death Watch guys are super cool. I admit it's a little odd because while it makes a lot of sense for Kill Team, which is what the box is, as a 40K player, if you wanted to convert these over to 40K, these are really good models. They're a bunch of one-ofs, but they're not a unit by themselves, right? You're going to kind of break them up and put them in your different units, which as a Death Watch player, you're going to kind of do that anyway, but it's not the best for regular 40K, but they're still super sweet and very usable in 40K. We have been looking for some more minis with some of this stuff. The, we'll call them upgrade sprue that's in this, has a bunch of it's like one of every Loyalist chapter shoulder. Obviously not like all the second foundings, but there are even some of many, I should say, of the second foundings in there as well. Super cool stuff. Our Discord this morning was kind of blown up with whose shoulder is that? And whose shoulder is that? And they were all discussing. So it's very cool.
Yeah.
On the other side, you've got the Necrons. They're all new models. Some of the little Cerebite kind of robot-y guys, it's just like a different sculpt. We've arguably had those before, but there's brand new little spider guys. There's a brand new Cryptek. I hesitate to say this, but he might be the coolest looking Cryptek. I love that guy. I want him so bad. It comes with what looks like boarding action terrain. So there's a bunch of walls and doors and stuff like that. So it's a good box. We're not going to get a ton of them, but we will have them up for pre-order this Saturday. So by the time you're listening to this tomorrow. And then there's also some of the older kill teams are coming out individually. This is cool. But the one that I think people are most looking forward to is the new Ravener kill team unit. You've had a ton of pre-orders and people constantly asking, hey, when are they going to be available? When are they coming out? Obviously, we barely know as much as you guys do, maybe a little more, but not by much. So we didn't really know until Saturday anyway. But it's very cool. They're coming out. We're going to try to have a ton of those because I know we've had a ton of requests for that. In addition, there's the Battleclade, which is the AdMech guys and Sisters, I believe.
Yeah. The Novitiate Squad.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
So all cool stuff, especially for us 40K players as well as Kill Team players. Obviously, Kill Team guys are going to be happy, but us 40K players that didn't want to buy into the big 2-player box in order to get, the Raveners, or the big 2-player box to get the Battleclade, whatever else.
Mm-hmm.
We'll have a bunch of those up, still 15% off, just like we always do. Yep. And we're constantly trying to build stock. That's what I've been working on over the last few weeks. So while you're checking out pre-orders, feel free to check out the rest of our site. All of our GW stuff is 15% off all the time.
Yep.
We can just tack that onto your order and ship it out to you.
Bingo.
Ship anywhere in the US. There are a couple of things about the website that are a little weird. Specifically, we had an issue with Puerto Rico. If you want us to ship there, we will, but just shoot us an email because the website gets finicky.
So on that note, I have a thing I want to talk about.
Yes.
The new Warhammer Plus minis that got announced. They look pretty sick.
I want to agree. I have actually, I've heard people talk about them and I'm excited, but I haven't actually seen them myself just yet.
Oh, you need to go. You need to go look at them after we're done recording. Go look at the thing. Also, the other thing I wanted to bring up today, the last thing is, just so you know, they are doing classic Eldari and classic Emperor's Children made to orders right now. And we're talking about the old sculpts, the very, very old sculpts, the OGs. The
old metal ones.
Mm-hmm. So if you're wanting to grab some Emperor's Children jamming out on the Guntars, I love the Guntars, or some pretty savage looking Eldari, go get in. The orders, I think, are available on the 30th of August. So you can start putting in your pre-orders. And they will only, they are only going to make them to order. So you're not going to be able to order them on the website or anything. You have to contact them and get them ordered. So yeah, they're pretty cool. I've seen yours in particular of these old sculpts in person.
Okay, some of them are admittedly a little goofy, and that makes them like adorable, right? It's like, no, that's like, why is he so short? But also, yes, they're like historical. They've clearly discontinued them because they're discontinuing as much of the metal as they could possibly discontinue this edition.
Yep.
So a lot of these things are already hard to get a hold of. If you are interested in some of that historical stuff, I strongly suggest getting these made to orders, because this is probably the last chance you're going to see them. Yep. That being said, if you want to play some of these old historical things, you'll have to do some work. We got to put them on bigger bases and, put them on a few tactical rocks, things like that.
Yep.
But again, it's mostly about, I would say, a hobby thing. It's historical. So maybe you remember this from back in the day. Maybe you just think it looks cool because it's history. Paint it up, put it on your shelf. Reasonable.
At any rate, these are the things I wanted to talk about. Just a reminder, head on over to Gopher Games at gophermafia.com and do your pre-order and do your shopping. Get some 15% off. Save some dollars. Put them back in your pocket for GW stuff. But on that note, I've got nothing else. How about you, Chris?
Yeah, that's what I got. Let's go to some units.
Woo! Let's go to the last part of our episode. All right, Chris, we're going to talk about units.
Okay. Again, these data sheets are either clad in gold or lead. I feel like there's not very much in between. There's some in between. There's not very much. So I'm going to start, because I have to judge a bunch of events, right? I'm going to start with, we need a judge ruling. Okay. I'm going to I'm going to kind of make fun of GW as we go here, mostly because it's like both sad and funny. We know what they mean, but even like some of the good stuff is like almost too good. Obviously points make that reasonable, but like, wow, these data sheets. So the first one that arguably needs a judge ruling. The rest of these are like opinion based, but this one I think actually needs a ruling. The destined character, Uthar the Destined, and there's a relic in one of the attachments called Ancestral Cap. Both of these reduce the cost of a CP, and they stack. I'm not actually sure there's a ruling out there.
You have to give me CP when I use negative.
You're right. I think you could use like Uthar, and then you could also use this enhancement in order to reduce the cost by 1. You have to like spend a yield point, but in doing so, the stratagem might be -1, and you might just get a CP back that says, okay, now I can Overwatch. Like
every time I use a stratagem, I get a CP.
It's not every time, right? Because like it's
you
just
got
like
the max 1 per turn and everything.
Yeah. There are limitations. I'm not saying this is like crazy broken, because arguably, even if this does work this way, I don't know that I'm mad at it. You have to take a specific detachment. You have to take a specific character. You have to like stack them in such a way. It's fine. Also, it's funny. The short answer is I'm pretty sure it's not supposed to go negative. We're going to kind of, at our events, we're going to say it's not going negative, because I'm pretty sure that's what they mean.
It only makes sense that you're not going to get a CP for spending. Like, the intent here is like we play by intent a lot of the time, right? The intent is you're not getting CP because you chose to use an ability. Like, that's not how this works. You still have to spend something, or in this case, nothing. Like, no, you ain't getting nothing.
Yeah.
Oh God. Okay, I love that.
So going down the list, we've got a bunch, and I mean a bunch of new units. I'm sure you've all seen them by now, but the faction is adding a real number of data sheets this Codex. Bury, we're going to start with him. He's literally on the cover. He is the poster boy for this Codex. And let me tell you, he doesn't disappoint. He's 110 points of kind of auto include. I love this man. Hilariously good. He's got stealth. He's got lone op. He is kind of a monster in combat, especially compared to the rest of the Votan, but also even compared to non-Votan models, he's still a very strong character. And I've heard some people say that he's a little soft. He's only got 5 wounds. He's a 3-up, 4-up. I think that's pretty normal for a character. That being said, he has a revival mechanic. So he's actually 10 wounds. Hilariously good. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, see, here's the ultimate kicker. I had a discussion with one of our customers about this, right? He essentially has anti-vehicle, anti-monster 3-up all the time because of one of his weapon profiles.
Well, so sort of. He has like a strength 10 or 12? Strength 12 in melee.
12 melee.
It's hilariously good. Okay. It's not actually anti-vehicle 3+, because you could actually go fight like T12 vehicles. They are reasonably playable in several different factions, but he is so good. Like, I think he's an auto include.
100%.
At 110 points, especially if they end up upping him, maybe there's an argument to, the amount of points he costs compared to other characters. Maybe you don't take him later after they up his points, but at 110, he's in every list. I love him. So now we did a good thing. We'll bounce back and forth. Plated in gold, Bury. Plated in lead, the new evaluator. I hate this man so much.
That bad, huh? That bad?
Okay, and here's why I hate him. There are like 4, and I literally talked about him yesterday. There are like 4 different fixes that are arguably minor that they could do, and I would feel better about them. But long story short, his gun is short range, and it has hazardous. This is not like he has 3 different profiles. One doesn't have hazardous, but it's only a 12-inch range. And it's like the worst version as far as like actual damage output. So you never really want to do that. Well, then you have the middle profile, which has hazardous, which goes up to 18-inch range. Still kind of too short, but whatever. It gets slightly better. And then they have an overcharge profile, which is to say hazardous, but the test is at -2, which means you're hazarding on a 1, 2, or 3. You have a 50% chance of just blowing up. He has 4 wounds, so he gets to survive through 1 hazardous in theory. Because he has lone op and he's running around on his own. So maybe he gets to live through the first hazardous. But by the time you shoot the second time, there's a good chance, not a guarantee, but a good chance he just kills himself. And what do you get for this super crazy hazardous? It goes from 18-inch range to 24-inch range. This profile, each step also increases like an AP and A damage. I'm not saying it's bad, but also this model is 75 points. It doesn't have any synergy with anything. He's just off doing his own thing. And he, best case scenario, has only a 24-inch range. And that's if you were actively trying to kill your own model. I hate this guy. He's definitely not good enough. All of his guns have rapid fire, which goes up for each tier. But I would like to point out, like the first tier's rapid fire is only 6 inches, and it's only rapid fire 1. It's almost irrelevant. As you go up to the like crazy strong one, right? Well, now it's like rapid fire 3, and that's pretty good. But you're still having to be within 12, which means by the time you get rapid fire 3, you're inside lone op, so you better kill them or you just die. And that's, even if you kill them, there's like a 50% chance you probably die.
Throw him in a drop pod. Oh, wait, you can't.
You're right. We got a new transport, and it turns out he can't even go in the new transport. I hate him. Like, part of the only argument to he's could live through more than 2 rounds of shooting, assuming he doesn't blow himself up, is because you let's say you lone op him. Well, but if you're lone opping him, that means you have to actually run up the field, which means you might just get charged and, easily killed because you're a really soft Votan character. So what's your only option? Well, your only option is to put him in strategic reserves. Well, now he doesn't have deep strike, so I have to strategic him. Hope that means that a good target is within, let's say, 18 of the edge so that I get rapid fire on the scary gun. And then after I blow myself up, putting myself down to 1 wound, my opponent can literally shoot pistols at me and kill the model after I've shot a single time, and they don't even feel like they lost any shooting. Again, there are many solutions to this. I'm going to argue that all the profiles should be 24-inch range at least. because I'm already getting penalized on my AP, my damage, my rapid fire characteristic for like making the hazardous not kill me. At least give me the range so I'm allowed to shoot something. You could arguably make this model absolutely awful like he is, but then make him incredibly cheap. 75 points is not incredibly cheap. In the lore, for those who have read like the High Marshal book or any of that other stuff, I think it was a High Marshal book. No, that wasn't High Marshal. Anyway, the Votan book. There was some information about how he has like these warding runes on him. So as he's going to like get blown up, I think this is specific calls, but they have technology to where like as the call is going to like blow his brains out from the warp, he like the runes transfer the energy to one of the robots, and then the robot takes the damage instead. They could have given this guy feel no pain. They could have, because he's an evaluator and like does this all the time. They could have given him little robots to where it's like, nope, every time you fail a hazardous test, instead of taking 3 mortal wounds, you could kill off one of these robots. Like there's a bunch of options, both lore wise and like gameplay wise, they could have done to fix him. Unfortunately, they released a model that looks cool, currently is pretty bad. Moving on. I hate him. I can go on all day. So I talked about the call. I guess I'll touch on him real quick. The call is funny to me. The call is fine. There's nothing wrong with him. But what's funny about him is there are several units in this codex that have rules that feel odd and redundant. So between the call and like he has a 4-up invul, and one of his war gears is he gives his unit a 5-up invul. Okay, well that's not so bad, right? What units can he join? And then you go look at those units, and those units can already give themselves a 5-up invul. Okay. Or they have to make a choice because it's a war gear. They can give them 5-up invul, or they can give themselves deep strike. Well, that sounds like a choice if you're looking at the one data sheet. But when you look at all the characters that you could attach to them, the only time that war gear choice ever matters, because all the war gear is worded to where if one of them has it, whether it's the character or the unit, it gives it to the whole unit. The Hearthguard always have a 5-up invul and always have deep strike, even if you don't use it. They always have it because the champion gives them deep strike, and then the unit gives everyone a 5-up invul, or vice versa. They literally have the same war gear that's worded the whole unit. So arguably the only time where the war gear choice ever matters is if you take the Hearthguard unit without a character. Then you're actually making a choice. They're already 2-up armor. You're already probably taking deep strike, and the 5-up invul only ever exists if their AP is greater than 3, assuming you don't have cover. If you have cover, the AP has to be greater than 4. Why not just say that they all have a 5-up invul and move on? This war gear is like worded super dumb. Again, Paul's not bad. He has cool rules. But also the war gear between the Hearthguard and the characters that can join the Hearthguard are silly and complicated for no reason. You're having to make war gear choices that are irrelevant. I don't understand GW. Going on to things that are good. Steeljacks. We got new models. Okay, so as is relevant to the detachments we talked about earlier, especially the transport detachment, here's an important note. Steeljacks are infantry. We talked about them when we saw the models, but we didn't have the rules about them being like, oh, they're like little dreadnoughts, or they're like centurions, or whatever else, and we kind of like threw out a bunch of what they're like, the answer is they're like 2-up armored Gravis Marines. They're T6, they have 3 wounds, and they have 2-up armor. That's it. They're a Gravis Marine with 2-up armor. If we view them that way, they're way easier to evaluate. Well, now it's 90 points for 3, 180 for 6, so it's 30 points a model. So if we look at our other Gravis Marines, 30 points a model is a little spendy, but also it's kind of in the ballpark of like a Terminator, Gravis Marine, something like that. So pretty reasonably priced. Happy about it. Because they're infantry, they can go in some of the transports, specifically the Land Fortress. Because they're infantry, again, that transport detachment, you can give them all sustained 1 just because. Hilariously good. It means you can, if you're worried about keeping your gun boys alive, you could keep them inside a transport, turn 1, dump them out later, go charge something with the melee. I've heard them called slapjacks. Steeljacks are very good. There's no complaint here. Again, they're gold plated for their points, for what they do. They're very solid. Their guns aren't crazy impressive, but also you can take an extremely cheap character, which we'll talk about later. An extremely cheap character. It's only 45 points. Attach them, give them free Overwatch. So that's pretty solid. You can take that same extremely cheap character, put them in the slapjacks, and then you can get free heroic intervention. Solid stuff. This unit isn't crazy like auto include, take 12 of them or whatever the number is, but they're really solid. They're very good. A 3-man unit isn't so threatening that your opponent's like targeting them turn 1, but they're not so weak that after your opponent ignores them turn 1 to go after your Land Fortress or whatever else, they like you can still punish them for that. 90 points still puts in a very real amount of work. I like these guys a lot. So some more bad with the good.
Oh boy.
Chthonian Earthshakers. That's the artillery. They are technically better than the Evaluator. This is my praise. They're bad. So they have indirect fire. They have heavy and they have blast. Okay. Not bad. Their profiles for their guns. Not bad. Except for they have a 5-up ballistic skill. Well, now I have a 5-up ballistic skill. So if I don't use the heavy for whatever reason, because one of the artilleries is actually only a 24-inch range. Why? I have no clue. But let's say I have to move because I only have a 24-inch range. Well, now I'm hitting on 6s. Awful. And that's after I'm giving them cover. Absolutely terrible. Their abilities. So they're 2 guns. And this is where I think they actually made a mistake. They have 2 different guns. And instead of making them like normal missile launchers, where it's like you can shoot the frag or you can shoot the crack, depending on what it is you want to do, they made them wholly separate guns. So before the game even starts, I have to decide in my 2-man unit, how many of this gun do I want and how many of this gun do I want? Then the abilities on the data sheet have 2 different abilities, and each of them only apply to one type of gun. Okay, well, now I feel obligated to take one of each, right? To like get my abilities. Well, it turns out one of the abilities for one of the guns, because they only affect the one gun, not each other, is then further limited to only twice per game. Okay, how do my frag rounds frag turn 1 and turn 2, but now they lose their frag ability for the rest of the game? What?
Yeah, that don't make any sense.
And here's where I think this is like a playtesting problem, right? Because The argument is I have no problem with the game balance of only twice per game. If the argument was it was the same little mortar tube and we only brought enough rounds to like use this twice per game, now it all makes sense. And it's like a good ability, right? It's like full rerolls to wound. Okay, so if I use my frag rounds, I get to full reroll to wound. It's a different profile, but solid choice. But I only get to do that twice per game. Makes sense. Wouldn't complain. But like, I had to choose from the beginning of the game. Am I going to take 1 frag and 1 crack or 2 frag? If I take 2 frag, or even if I only take the 1 frag, I'm only getting this ability twice per game. So, well, I'm not sure what GW's like idea here was. Am I supposed to outflank my artillery, like strategic reserves them in? That makes up for the range problem. If I'm not actually using indirect, which it's artillery, I'm supposed to be using the indirect. Maybe that kind of makes up for the 5 up to hit. And then since I can only use my ability twice per game, I'm not expecting to live more than 2 turns because I strategic reserved midway up the field and I'm for sure killable, I guess. But it's just bad. These guys are terrible. They're Chthonians, so their armor save is like 5+. Again, terrible. Their artillery in the back, so arguably that should be fine. But since their range is like 36 on one of the guns and 24 on the other, they're having to move up. They're having to be more aggressive than artillery should be. So they don't have the feel no pain that the other Chthonians have. Even if it was like a worse feel no pain, if they had some feel no pain, I would feel better about it. These guys are awful. I don't know what to say. This whole codex is like plaid and gold or plaid and lead. It's just
plaid and lead.
Feast or famine.
Doesn't feel great.
Yeah. Speaking of feast, the new buggies. Ooh, the new buggies. Okay, so the new buggies come in 2 different builds. You can build the little gunboat, or you can build a tiny transport. We'll start with the gunboat. This is weird because the gunboat is reasonable. I'm not saying it's bad. It's only 70 points per model. You can take them in squadrons, which make up for the fact that they have a low number of dice on their like actual scary gunboat gun. Solid stuff. No real complaints. They have Scout 9. They move 12. Super fast. They're not... I think this is actually one of the ones that seems like reasonable. I'm not saying it's crazy good. I think it's reasonable. If you switch over to the transport version, now they don't squadron. You have to take them like individuals, but they are a dedicated transport. This is huge. Dedicated transport means you're obligated to start the game with something inside them. What can go inside them? Only Jaegers. It's not bad, but also a little sad. So you have to take Jaegers whenever you take this transport. But notably, Jaegers come in a minimum unit of 10. The transport only transports 5. So just like the Sagittar, it has a rule where you can split up the unit. So you take 10 Jaegers. Actually, they're 2 units of 5 because you took this transport. Super happy about that. I think that's actually very powerful. That's helping us MSU without a giant point cost.
Mm-hmm.
It also helps balance out the Jaegers, arguably, because if I said you could take 45.5 man Jaegers, even if you weren't taking this transport, you would take all kinds of those. That's so cheap for 5 models. That sounds great. But because you have to pay 90 points up front, then you split them up. That's how you like the splitting them up has a tax of a 75 point transport. Again, I think this helps even out a lot of that point balance. I'm happy with all of this. It is still powerful, but it's like reasonable. Here's why I think these transports are gold plated. I'm a fan of a particular unit called a suppressor. I think it's one of the top 3 units in the Space Marine Codex. I will convince GW of this one day. Your dedicated transport has the suppressor rule. It has 6 shots hitting on 4s, effectively suppressor stat line. It's 7-1-2 instead of 8-1-2. Call it the same thing. If the transport hits, they are shaken and -1 to hit until your next turn. This is amazing. As you may have started to realize, part of the reason this is amazing is because it's a dedicated transport. That means you could take up to 6 of them. I'm not saying you should take 6 of these, but also, if I could take more than 3 units of suppressors, I would take more than 3 units of suppressors. Would you like every relevant unit your opponent has to be -1 to hit? Well, you could do that. Like, in addition to MSUing across the board and having no action problems and, because all the Jaegers that have to be inside them, etc. You just decide you're also playing like the Vanguard detachment. Your opponent gets -1 to hit all the time. Super good. Love every part of these.
So spam these hard.
I put together a list. I put it in the Patreon. Go take a look at it. I think not only is this incredibly powerful, but this is also incredibly synergistic with that board control detachment, because any unit can do the ability to assail. Well, now I've got 6 dice and I really want to, I want to shake that thing that's in the back that I can't deal with this turn. Okay, well, now I get to also assail it. And now another thing, literally anything, the 5-man Jaegers with shotguns get to shoot at that thing, knowing we're going to do like 1 damage, right? I don't actually care about the damage. I'm going to assail it again. Well, now it's pinned. So now it's -1 to hit, -2 inches to its move, -2 inches to its charge. I've effectively said that unit for 75-point transport and what is effectively a 45-point unit is hampered for the next turn hard. I don't care what unit it is, whether it's melee, shooting, whatever. It's out of position, so it can't go and do an action because it's slow. It's out of position. It can't get onto an objective because it's slow. It's -1 to hit, so its damage output is like tiny. It gets -2 to its charge on top of the -2 move, which means if it's melee, it doesn't get to do that either. So good. I won't go through every data sheet in this codex. However, I do want to go over one more, not only because it's a new model, but also because it's another auto include. So there's the new strategist. The strategist is only 45 points. I don't care if he was a blank data sheet. For 45 points, that sounds like an auto include one of, because it can hold my home field objective for cheap, like almost half the cost of a lone op lieutenant. That's already good enough. I'm happy. Then he does stuff. The stuff he does is while he's on an objective during your command phase, he can choose to add or subtract 1 to your yield points. This is incredibly powerful. Like, if I'm trying to ramp to the -1 to wound, I can just get there way faster. If I'm trying to but I want that reroll charges still, but I didn't want to not score my primary on turn 2. Well, now you just subtract 1 and help try to keep you under that 7 that you're looking for. Super good. This is the same guy that can attach to the new steel jacks. So he's the one that if you attach him to a unit and actually push him up the board instead of sitting on your home field, now he can give them free Overwatch or free heroic intervention. 45 points. Again, solid. Now, he does have a drawback. The drawback is his damage output is non-existent. I don't care what it is you're talking about. On a good day, between shooting and charging, he kills on average 1 grot. So
that's so bad.
Yes, but it's not his job, okay? He's the strategist. He doesn't fight. That's not his job. He's there to lead the troops. He's 45 points. Leave him alone. Again, I'm saying he's an auto include one of, because you leave him on your home field objective and he earns you turn 1, he earns you a yield point to spend on whatever. Turn 2, he helps keep you above or below the threshold to change your army role, depending on what it is you want to do. And then the whole time he's holding the home objective in case that applies to your secondaries or primary mission or whatever. And he's only 45 points. The first one is an auto include. Now he's not epic like Burry, so you can take more of him. If you take more of him, now we're going to do the other job he's intended for, which is to lead Steeljacks, be a CP reduction, make them more powerful for arguably cheap. And if the Steeljacks, like the Slapjacks, are free heroic intervention and they're standing on they're fighting on an objective, well, now he's on an objective again, so he also can stack and add another yield point. Solid. That's like a nice to have. That's not arguably what I purchased him for, but it's a nice upside. Sounds great. So, yeah, want to talk about him. Beyond that, I don't think we got any other new models that I haven't gone over. There's plenty of other stuff in this codex that is very good. Some of the old stuff is super powerful still. You should be playing it. I cannot imagine, I'm not going to say it's not include, but I can't actually imagine a Votan player not taking at least one land fortress. It's 240 points, and that feels like a lot. But also, given the options you have access to, you're probably playing one. If you're like in the European meta where it's all MSU, maybe you don't. But even then, I feel like you take one to deal with like your opponent's Vindicator or whatever else.
Yeah.
Anyway, Codex is very good. As far as points are concerned, I'm actually pretty happy with most of their points. I was pleasantly surprised with how cheap things were. Not like, oh, that's so cheap, that should probably go up. But like, no, that seems cheap for 3 bikes. But also, I'm okay with those points. That seems pretty good. I think there's only 2 units that I think really need a points adjustment. And I'm saying that knowing that they're probably not going to change any core rules, which I think they should change core rules, is the actual answer. But for now, until people get settled, the only adjustments I hope they make is the new artillery and the evaluator. Because I think those 2 are by far the 2 worst units in this codex. Everything else, I hope they just, both Reddit and GW, I hope they just give it time and let the Votan players really kind of work through this and figure it out, because it's going to take a while.
Mm-hmm. Well,
that's what I got.
That's it. That's it for the episode. Like I said, Short Kings. Short Kings.
Well, I didn't keep it very short, but...
Long episode for Short Kings. We got mad respect for him. All right. Well, on that note, I guess, thank you all for listening. Tune in next week. Hey, everybody. It's Aaron. I want to thank you again for tuning in for this episode of Gopher's Workshop with us, hanging out and listening. Remember, leave a 5-star review. Let us know what you think. And if you feel like supporting us, you can always go to Patreon in the show notes below. Thanks. Till next time.